everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tube, where it's our show where we review things in the world of television. Most times now we are doing episode by episode breakdowns of currently on air shows with brand new seasons. But sometimes we take a step back, just talk about a show, just in a casual setting, not too much, no ranking, no scoring, just a casual conversation. And today, to wrap up our summer run of quick impressions, we are doing Only Murders in the Building, which has been very hot on my hidden list of shows that I do want to watch for so long. I've heard about it for a couple of years. I've heard it was really well received. It's really funny. It's engaging. It's similar to true crime. It's a mystery drama, mystery comedy. You had Steve Martin Short, Selena Gomez, people that I've associated with different parts of my life throughout the many different years I've been alive for. So like you have all these great components, and then obviously as you progress forward into the seasons, you get multiple different guest stars, different selections of guest cast for the season, new characters to come in and stay on put for the entire run still. And just to clarify, this is still an ongoing show. This is being uploaded while we're in the middle of Season 5. I have not yet seen Season 5. This is actually being recorded the day before Season 5 premieres, so I don't know anything about the 5th season. I don't know anything about it. I'm only kind of giving my thoughts on the first 4 seasons, and that's about it. So there's going to be barely any spoilers. I will not be spoiling any of the mysteries components to it, the revelations. I'm just mainly talking about the show as is. So if you're concerned about that, I just wanted to state that before for the record. But moving on forward, I felt it to be the culmination of everything. I've recently watched The Bear, which was another one on the lower end of things. So, like, of all the Hulu shows that kind of, Hulu was a very popular platform for me this summer. And I was very thankful for that. I'm still catching up on a couple other things right now that we're probably not going to get finished by before the next fall season of television shows or seasons premiere. So I'm still going to be fairly busy, and we'll have to save that for next summer. But this was the time. Me and my partner watched this together, and this is coming off. She's addicted to true crime related thrillers right now in the literary space, and I'm always a sucker for mystery shows, detective dramas. I've reviewed a couple of them right now on What's in the Tube in general, so I knew this was going to be right up my alley, and I was very much curious to see. And of all the summer seasons I managed to watch through and through, I think this is probably in my favorite category. This is the most consistent, if not gets better as it goes with this type of show. And the fact, again, similar to what I talked about with The Bear recently, is that the fact that we're getting quality product every year on schedule is amazing. Again, obviously, this is not a CG-heavy show. This has barely any of anything. This is mainly just focusing on just, what's on camera is what's presented. So, and the fact that, we're now going into a 5th season and still, the quality's still there. Like, I just finished Season 4 a couple days ago, and just getting to, just watch the whole thing, and getting to see this unfold was, was very thrilling for me. I enjoyed it a lot. I made time to make sure I watched multiple episodes a day, and it was just great. Just to give a non-spoiler, a very loose review of it, I really enjoyed Only Murders in the Building. I think it's one of my favorite shows on the Hulu platform. I'm very happy to see that it has garnished the success, and this is one of those shows where as long as the quality is still there, and I can see it still going, I can see this show going for another double the length. I can see this going to 10 seasons, and still going in yearly, and I'll be very excited to see that. Hopefully, I don't know how far that'll go, but it's just a guesstimate. This is how great the quality is for 10 episodes every year. It still holds that up. It's like a traditional broadcast television show, and still managing to keep, the rotating feed of guest stars, and only needing to have the primary cast still there, and just all the other pieces will come and be. And I'm like, that's honestly a really interesting model that I don't quite see often in a lot of TV shows out there. Usually they're very loosey-goosey, even the main cast, oh, we'll come back in a couple years, give or take, just depends on the scheduling, certain aspects of that. And that's kind of where it's at now, where I very much, while I can nitpick certain elements and certain storylines of what certain characters missing or such like that, they managed to take the pieces they have, similar to a murder mystery, and kind of building the best possible story they can do. And the result, it showcases for the quality and the final presentation. And I give that wholeheartedly that's like the big factor of it. And I think for me the biggest factor of the show's success is the characters, the dynamic, and getting to hear some of the interviews, hearing some of the behind the scenes stuff into the making of the show, where the fact is that the main key component had to be the trio, which is Steve Martin's character, Martin Short's character, and Selena Gomez's character in Charles, Oliver, and Mabel. That had to be the constant focal point. Like, you can't really do too much else of that. And the fact of, like, they got such a great bandwidth, a great rapport, and it's literally just like a mini family in the making from episode 1 to where we are at episode 40. It's quite cumbersome to see that it works. Like, friendships don't necessarily have to be set in stone by age or by gender or by, classification of status. If you have a through line in common, and that made that very clear in the first episode, where all of them just happen to realize, oh, we all love true crime. And then literally not even like a few hours later, obviously spoilers, the whole purpose of the show is that there's a murder, and for somehow reason these hobbyists later turn into podcasters, become the actual people solving the real mystery. It's like, eventually, like, we get to season 3 and 4, and even the police are just like, let them do it. Oh, it's the Arconia? Let the podcast trio solve it. We'll get the evidence afterwards, and we will process that later on. And honestly, it was so hilarious of the fact of, even there was a line where, like, they said, like, they managed to solve 3 murders that the NYPD homicide division never could. And I'm just like, that's hilarious. But at the same time, it's like, obviously just as a primitive warning, that's not always the case. I mean, sometimes you get lucky, but not every case has to be like that, But honestly, just the way that it is very much of a slow burn at times. And the fact that, that they focus on these characters, that, that regardless of what's going on in the actual murder itself, the actual mystery, that the characters are still developing, that there is a genuine change in all of them, even just in 4 seasons alone, which, quite frankly, I think, is a little bit difficult to do, where, like, you want to keep the characters engaged and interesting, and you don't want to, like, turn tiredness of it. And I'm just like, even, like, like, how do they still keep it going? Like, the whole mantra and the whole motive of the season, like, the whole point is that they can only produce their podcast when there's a murder in their specific building, so they don't overwhelm themselves, and also they don't lose their luster. And the fact that so far in the show, they solved X amount of murders in such a short time period is just like, I don't know whether or not they're a magnet or just, obviously it's a show, so it's like they gotta somehow keep things intriguing and engaging. So I give them that as a shortcut. But the fact of the matter is that, they still managed to, like, realistically have these going, and everything feels very genuine. And only minor spoilers, that there is a time jump between 2 and 3. Like, you can't really have 3 murders back to back to back in the first retrospect year of them being friends. And I think it works out very well as a formula of that, where, like, each murder, like, seems like, I have no idea how the season 5 murders handled. I really don't know. Maybe I could be literally different. Like, by the time this posts, and, like, people are like, oh my god, this is so bad, this was a really bad decision. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm hopeful that they're still able to, like, kind of keep the same quality going, if not better. And that's kind of how the way it was, because, like, when I was watching season 1 with my partner, the show was still engaging, but again, we were finding its footing, but there was enough genuine chemistry between the trio that, even though, like, the original murder victim, Tim Konos, wasn't exactly the best, in my opinion. After looking at all the main 4 murder mysteries so far, it is my least favorite, only because they managed to improve themselves better and better, and which is funny considering the fact even they make a lot of meta jokes, especially in season 2, that, oh yeah, season 2s are never as great as season 1. They're always trying to copy the original, and they made that very clearly. And even though, for me personally, I enjoyed the season 2 mystery over season 1, so I don't know, it's just like, I love the meta commentary. I guess that's why Deadpool, for example, as a Marvel character, has very much worked in the cultural zeitgeist with his movies. So here, being that, it makes sense. And just, like, even some of the other characters, like, reference previous seasons as, like, previous podcast seasons. So, like, it's so meta, like, are they talking about the show, or are they talking about the podcast? I was like, obviously talk about the podcast, but I'm just like, oh, it's so good. It really, really is. And besides, like, even, like, the small supporting consistent cast, where the Arconia residents, which eventually gets dwindled down to a few of the go-tos. Like, they don't necessarily have to, like, continue following the straightforward nature of it. And I think that's where, like, I think they lose a little bit of that, I guess, a sellout aspect of it, which I think it works benefit to them, where minor spoilers that they kind of like, they had a supporting cast of Arconian members, but as they slowly kind of build up their supporting celebrity guest star cast, they kind of push them to the side a little bit, and they only keep a couple of the more popular ones, and the rest, I'm like, there's even a couple of residences we don't get to see since season 1, and obviously, they were never guaranteed to keep going, but like just in general, like, it would have been nice to kind of still keep building out that little Arconia world. But the fact that the show was still successful, I mean, it's a double-edged sword where, like, you kind of lose, like, the world building you could have really done, and for the sake of having a celebrity face attached each and every season. But either way, like, the fact that, as a minor spoiler, I'm just basing this on the posters alone. You got Zach Galifianakis, Eugene Levy, and even Longoria in the 4th season portraying the characters in a movie. Honestly, like, I thought that was just going to be like, yeah, this is the sellout season. We can get celebrity guest star into the season, make it work, and they actually did make it work, and I completely forgot about it. And the fact they cast, like, all new people every season and still keep some certain around, it's just like, dang, like, it works out, of the sellout aspect of it. And, I know some people might say, like, oh, it loses the original shine like that. But I think to the show's benefit, the primary factor was always to make sure the trio stayed put in terms of their quality. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, where, like, every season the trio's dynamic gets even better and better as, obviously the real-life actors and actress continue to develop their own personal connection, their own personal banter, and apply that to their characters. It kind of really works out as a benefit to that, and it just makes the final product even more intriguing to watch. Where, like, I think almost every episode of the season I was hooked, line, and into it from the get-go, and I was very much, like, on board with every single little thing of it, and I couldn't ask for a better trio. I really couldn't. Like, if it was any other set, because I think if I read it correctly, the original premise was to be 3 older white males, or at least 3 older males portraying the leads, and they were like, no, we need to, like, kind of like put the dynamic on a different leg. So, like, let's cast an actress, a younger actress, that can, like, that can have an interesting dynamic to that. Because, like, it's I've always seen this a lot in other shows. This isn't the first time I've seen a show where, like, an old character and a young character have, garnish a really great friendship and banter of, like, oh, she's young, he's old, he doesn't know a lot of things in the modern day, and she's teaching him about it. They do that, but not in, like, a in-your-face kind of way. It's, like, kind of subtle jabs that kind of makes their bickering and their banter kind of, kind of stand out in a way. And I think the only other flip side to it that I will give the show a little bit to discredit, where, like, even though, like, it's 4 seasons in and I'm praising it a lot, but I don't put it in my top 10, for example. And again, I'm talking about my own personal preference. I still very much love the show, and I really can't wait for season 5 to premiere. I just don't put it up there because, like, there is a bit of, like, a changing variable that, like, that, again, it's kind of like the dance you gotta do when you're developing a show, and especially when you have multiple seasons to produce, where, like, certain elements that I really did like in those earlier seasons, such as, having to developing the Arconia residences, so we don't always have to go to a Howard, or I can't remember everyone's name, but, like, the other cranky old lady, not Bunny, but her best friend, like, she always makes a cameo every season, or at least some form of an appearance, not that consistently, but she's there too. Like, we don't really get to flesh too much out of other Arconia residences, and I know, where, minor spoiler, there is a secondary batch of them in season 4, but even they call themselves the Westies, so they don't really classify themselves fully as Arconians. As, again, they sacrifice that for, like, we get the theater group in season 3 because they're doing a Broadway play, and then, of course, obviously the movie related cast from season 4, and I think personally, it does hurt the show a little bit, and also the podcast group, the fan cast that we kind of, the fact that we got in 2 seasons without them, like, I loved, like, those interactions in the first 2 seasons. I think that was the most unexpected, likable aspect that I related to when I was watching that first season. Then briefly into season 2, like, I would have loved to see what they're up to, and hopefully we get to catch them up with season 5. I think, as much as having these celebrity guest stars are great, like, you know what, like, maybe eventually let's have an old-fashioned season where, like, we can have a whole new line of accordion resonances coming in that are also played by celebrity guest stars and kind of have them interact, I mean, that'd be intriguing as a concept, at least for me, because, I don't want them to overstay their welcome. I really don't. And, they made it very, very clear that their intentions is not to stay beyond a certain level. They don't want to keep doing the show just because it's a paycheck, just because it's a consistent job. They want to do it because they see that audiences are very happy with the show. It's still performing. And the fact they still can come up with new stories and make things still minorly fresh each season. Like, every season kind of feels like a different installment. And I don't view season 2 as more season 1, or I don't view season 4 as more season 2. For example, I don't view them as like extensions. I view them as new installments. They have a different feel, they have a different aura, but it's still continuing the same base story. And I think that is a remarkable achievement that, it's not very easy to always do every single year, especially when you're doing things year to year. Like, at least every show that comes back every 2-3 years gets a little bit of leeway because we don't see it that often. We're not constantly subjected to it. We need to, so when we get that back, it's like a little bit of a nostalgic feel, like, oh my God, we got this back again. So, and I think that works out for this particular show's benefit. And I hopefully get to see more of that as, season 5 premieres very, very soon on that regard. And honestly, again, like, just the fact they made a very rich world that, honestly, similar to The Bear, I could potentially see a couple spinoffs being developed from here if they choose to do it. And I think that's, again, a really good indicator that you develop such a really rich world that, like, you can do a lot of options. Like every secondary cast so far in seasons 2, 3, and 4, I can kind of see something being developed on the back end of it, and I could see them, like, really trying to delve deeper into that world. Obviously, again, the priority is obviously on buildings, so, and this trio, and it makes sense that they're always going to be the focal point. But other than that, besides those little nitpicks I had on it, and just, my brain thinking of franchise expansions, I think the show's perfect the way it is. Like, it's going to have flaws. They're going to be so meta about it that it works in the show's benefit. And so far, every single murder mystery they tackle becomes more and more emotionally attachful than the last. Like, I think season 4's murder was, like, the best one for me, personally speaking, only because it's a bit of a tragedy, just the way how it goes, and that kind of gets progressed from season 3 to season 2, and not really much of season 1, to an extent. Like, at least they kind of make you feel a little bit for the murder victim, and even somewhat for the killer, a little bit. Actually, not even last year's was like, nah, not even close. But no, other than that, it still keeps things engaging, it still keeps things, very much fresh. Even, like, I think every season they do, like, this unique episode presentation where season 1, minor spoiler, there's a character that only knows ASL, so an episode was presented in either ASL or just by mouthing via subtitles. And even in the recent season, they do a found footage episode. So I'm like, I can't wait to see what they'll do for season 5. But and that's the thing that I really like. Like, even the types of episodes they do, like, and keep things fresh and keep things, engageful. Like, you're not just constantly rewatching the same thing, just presented differently. And again, even on a year-to-year fashion on a streaming platform, the fact that they are able to do this and they're able to keep this, going and keep it more engaged as ever, is a big shout out to the crew and the cast for it. And, I was very happy to knock this off my list at long last and to finally add it to my year-to-year. And hopefully that doesn't mean because I have a tradition and I have a curse that every time I get into a show and I catch back up the next season after I finally joined back on the bandwagon, they cancel it or they end it. So if Only Murders ends in season 6, you can blame me. I will personally put that on air. I will. But I really enjoyed the show. I really, really, I don't think I have much more to say beyond that from a spoiler-free capacity. I really can't. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It's well worth the binge. If I was free for a whole week, I would have gladly binged this all in one sitting, and hopefully down the road I get to do it again if we get a season 6 and we're leading up to it. I would love to do that. But yeah, I believe that's going to do it for me today. Let me know down below. What did you think of Only Murders in the Building? Did you love it? Did you like it? Are you excited for season 5? let me know. I would love to have a conversation with you about it. But I believe that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So for Anywhere, this has been Joe here from ActionX, showcasing another episode of What's in the Tube. If you want to see more of us here, please subscribe to us only on youtube.com/ActionX. If you want to see more content like this, please again, ring that bell for notification when our next video is live. Like, favorite, share this particular review if you want to, and follow us on social media. But until we see each other again, thank you so much for watching. Please stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out.